continue to engage with provinces across the country on updating the equalization formula in ways that are fair, and it is something that continues to bind this country together. Unfortunately, you, Mr. Blanchet, as a sovereigntist, are always looking for opportunities to create fights between Quebec and the rest of Canada to advance your separatist agenda.
We have paid for the development of oil in Western Canada,
Canadians want.
And you make us pay again with this idea of buying a pipeline over there. And tell me something, what can a Canadian do that a Quebecer cannot do? Why would we need anything?
I think by definition, a Quebecer can do anything a Canadian can do because a Quebecer is a Canadian and will remain a Canadian under my watch. Monsieur Blanchet.
Gentlemen, thank you. Mr. Bernier, you now have the opportunity to debate Mr. Blanchet.
Yes, speaking about the equalization, I'm the only leader who's ready to look at the equalization formula for being sure that the formula will be less generous and fair for every province. Let me explain. It is not fair to tax people out west and also in Quebec because Quebecers, are proud and they want to live in a richer province. So what we must do, we must give the right incentive to provinces to develop their own natural resources. That's so important to have a discussion about the equalization, and they don't want to have that discussion. Let's be less generous and fair for every province. Why? Why? Because it is important when you have people in Alberta. 20% of people in Alberta wants to have the discussion, and let's have that discussion.
Okay, Quebecers receive less money from equalization per capita than anybody else who receives it in Canada. Do you mind about stopping those lies?
All right. Mr. Blanchet, Mr. Singh, your opportunity to debate.
Yes. I was thinking about ways we can make life more affordable. And this is where I think we can do a lot if we work together. This is one of the things I believe that we can build a better Canada if we tackle some of the challenges that people are facing. One of the things that we hear about a lot in Quebec is the cost of healthcare and that it's not there for them when they need it. If we work together, the Universal Pharmacare Plan is one where we use the buying power of all Canadians. It's still delivered provincially, but we can actually buy medication for lower costs and it will help out Quebec and help out people.
It is delivered provincially. And dental care would be, if we wanted to finance it, a provincial jurisdiction. You have good ideas, but your ideas always interfere and infringe into jurisdictions which are those of provinces and Quebec. So if you want to do that, please do it for Canada. Take our part of the money as the Constitution allows.
We can do that, and we can work together. The other thing we need to do is, when we want to tackle the problems, is housing. Housing is something that's concerning a lot of people. Federal money used to be invested in building, in partnership with provinces to build housing. We want to do that again.
Mr. Scheer, thank you. Mr. Singh, pardon me. Mr. Scheer, over to you.
I don't know how people are getting me mixed up.
You don't allow that.
I wore a bright orange turban on purpose today.
Mr.
What does it take?
I'm slightly taller than you, Mr. Singh. That must be.
And stop rubbing that in.
Mr. Scheer, please continue the debate.
It's important for Quebecers to realize that on so many issues, Monsieur Blanchet agrees with Justin Trudeau. He will support Justin Trudeau's higher taxes. He will support massive deficits that will continue to put pressure on Canadian taxpayers, meaning more and more of their dollar goes to pay the interest on the debt.
And we had to raise more money without raising taxes. So you didn't listen or you didn't understand?
We know that Monsieur Blanchet's priority is working with the Parti Québécois on sovereignty. So we know that if votes for Bloc Québécois MPs mean that Justin Trudeau stays Prime Minister. Avec le Bloc, le plus ça change, le plus ça reste le même.
And you know what? Do you remember that all that you say you did for Quebecers was done when Harper was in the minority government?
Purchase his oil and gas from the United States. You prefer sending consumers' dollars to the United States to support that economy. I prefer Canadian energy.
You've talked over each other and you're both out of time. Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Ms. May, it's your turn.
Forgive me, Donna, but Yellowknife, Ryland, I see you. Congratulations for being elected MLA. I'm just so excited. Now, turning to equalization payments, We need equalization in Canada because we're a country, we're a family. We need to think like a family. Your proposal, Mr. Blanchet, would be to put an extra burden on those parts of Canada, like Alberta, that have the toughest challenge to meet the climate crisis. We're concerned as Greens that we work together, that we not alienate Alberta.
I noticed that you had a strong sensibility for Alberta since your previous positions on oil were quite nice to them.
No, they're not nice. We're
in a
shutting
family,
down the oil
sometimes-
sands by
in a
2030.
family,
They don't
sometimes-
find it nice.
in a family,
That's why they
sometimes-
deserve
In a
fairness.
family, sometimes one does not agree with others, and it doesn't have to be forced to do what others
We are
say.
facing a climate emergency, and anyone who understands the science, and I hope you do,
And this
because
is,
we
this,
all
is a
marched
world,
with Greta.
this is a world issue, and only countries do international affairs, provinces
We
don't.
have to pull our weight as
All right.
provinces and as nations, and we do it together.
We have to move along. Thank you for that. We will end this segment with another open debate. Yves-François Blanchet, it is your turn to ask any other leader a question on the topic of your choice.
I wondered a long time. Mr. Scheer, you said in English a few months ago that you were strongly against the very idea of Bill 21 about laicity of the state in Quebec. Then you said in French in Quebec that you would do nothing against that law. But your very close collaborator, Mr. Alain Reyes, said the day before yesterday that you would protect the Bill 21. He said that in French, I must admit. You were the only one that would protect the Bill 21.
Can you get to the question, please?
How will you do that?
It's very, the answer to this question is very simple, Monsieur Blanchet, and you know that I've always been very clear on this issue. We will not intervene in the court case that is currently before the courts. The elected officials of Quebec have taken this decision, and now it is before the courts,
Mr.
and the
Reyes
courts,
said that
and the
you would
courts will
protect the law,
decide.
not tolerate
That
the law,
is
protect
exactly
the law.
What
What
I've
will you do
always
to
said
protect
in
this
English
law?
and in French. It's very important that a federal government respects and protects individual liberties and individual human rights. We will not pursue this court of action at a federal
Your
level.
definition
but
of
Mr.
individual
Scheer has the
liberties
floor.
in the law
it's quite simple. I just
might
answered
not
that question,
go in the
Mr.
same
Blanchet.
direction.
Mr. Blanchet, Mr.
C'est la même
Scheer
chose
has
en
the
français,
floor.
Monsieur Blanchet. It's the same thing in French. We will not intervene in this
That's
court
all
case.
that
The
matters.
court case will will decide this.
He does not say the same thing as you do.
It's exactly the same position, Monsieur Blanchet. You're
No.
trying to create a
Tolerating and
confusion
not
where
doing
it
something
doesn't
against
where it
the
doesn't
law
exist.
does not mean that you would protect it. I would protect it. You would
So
not.
we
you
are
won't be in a
open.
position
We
to
are
protect
going to have an
Mr.
open debate. That was Mr. Scheer's time to answer. I
Oh, I'm
apologize.
sorry. I will leave you some
We will
time.
now
I never
have
had.
the open debate. Mr. Blanchet, you may begin.
Okay,
Can I start speaking now? Because you spoke during my
please
answer.
go ahead. We're still nice people.
The issue on this has been exactly the same from the beginning. And Monsieur Blanchet, I think you're trying to create confusion where there doesn't exist confusion. I have always been very clear, both in English and in French. The answers have always been the same. This is something that at the federal level we will not pursue. The Conservative Party has always stood for individual liberty, for fundamental human rights. It was a Conservative Prime Minister that brought forward the Bill of Rights, the last Prime Minister from Saskatchewan,
Except,
John
of course,
Diefenbaker.
Mr. Scheer,
And
you
we
won't
will
defend a
allow
woman's right
these
to
types-
choose. You've
That is
dismissed
completely
LGBT,
false. That is
LGBT
completely
protections.
false.
You
Millions
haven't
of
apologized for
Canadians,
your words
millions-
against LGBT
millions-
Canadians
millions
years
of
ago.
Canadians,
Will you
millions
recognize
of
and
Canadians,
apologize
Mr.
for
Scheer,
that?
Millions of Canadians have a different position on this issue. And like millions of Canadians, I am personally pro-life. And it is okay in this country to have a difference of opinion, something
Yes,
you do not
but
recognize.
Canadians
And it is
need
beneath
to know-
it is
for men
beneath the
Canadians
office
need
of Prime
to
Minister
know
to
that their
demonize
Prime Minister,
people for their
Canadians
views.
need
The
to know that
laws
their
and
Prime
access
Minister-
One at a
on
time,
this
please.
issue-
One at a time,
The
please.
laws
me-
and
let me-
access on this issue have not changed for 30 years under Liberal Prime Ministers, under Conservative Prime Ministers.
Scheer, let me
They
help you out
did
here.
not change
need
when
to
I
know
am Prime
that
Minister.
their Prime Minister
That
will be
is
there
my
to defend
position.
them. And
Scheer,
you
let me
have
help
been,
you.
just answered that
you
question.
have been
Let me-
not
let's allow
unequivocal
Mr.
on
Singh
defending
a
women's
moment.
rights. You're signing the
Sure, this is
nomination
typical. You're
papers
gonna like this too.
of
You
people
want to talk
who
about
want to
nomination
take
papers?
away
How about your
rights of-
misogynist,
No one is hearing
racist
you right now.
candidate in Nova Scotia?
Okay.
Let me help you out,
Can
Mr.
we,
Scheer.
can we,
Let me help you out, Mr.
no,
Scheer.
nobody can hear what you're saying anymore.
You will be signing the nomination
man
papers
has
for
no
people who have
place
pledged
in
to
the
take away
discussion
rights
around
from
women's rights
women.
issues. Mr.
I
Scheer, let me
know.
help you out, man.
You're having a
struggling
mini
here.
debate
You're
over
struggling.
here. Can we bring in
A man
Mr.
has
Singh?
no position in a discussion on a woman's right to choose.
How about
Let's
a
be
woman's
very
right to
clear on that.
speak in a debate?
There we go.
Very clear.
It's been really interesting. interesting for most of this campaign to hear a lot of men arguing about what a woman's rights should be. But having all of you, except for Max, participated in the TVA debate where you were perfectly happy to keep women off the stage. I'm the only woman leader of a party. You participated in a debate which did not let our little girls see that there's a chance for a woman in this country to be prime minister, to run as the leader of a party. We must be clear as all leaders, and you are not clear, Andrew, that we will never allow a single inch of retreat from the hard-earned rights of women in this country, not 1 inch.
This is.
But
This
what
is a
troubles me that
typical-
you're open to working with Mr. Scheer.
Yeah.
Sure, I
and
would
Your own MPs could come up with a law against abortion, and you said that you will tolerate it.
No, I said we
typical
don't
liberal
allow anyone to run
tactic.
in our party
It's right
who
out of the
doesn't
liberal
hold a
playbook.
pro-choice
When they
position.
are in danger of
We
losing
don't-
an election, they
Sorry.
bring forward
This
these types
clearly
of
can't
needs
Photoshop
more
your words.
time.
Don't
I'm
allow
afraid we don't have more
issues,
time.
Unlike all the rest of you.
Ms. May, thank you very much. We're going to have to move on. Thank you. That concludes our segment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rosemary Barton from CBC News. Our next theme, we've already talked about it a little bit, but now we will for real, the environment and energy. And we will start with a question from another Canadian. We're going to go to a gathering of people watching the debate, this time at the Halifax Central Library. And we will talk to Britton Bancroft of Minto, New Brunswick, is there and has this question. Over to you.
Hi, my name is Britt Bancroft, and I'm from Minto, New Brunswick. And I believe we live in an age of climate crisis. And this is the last election we have before a point of no return is reached. Furthermore, I believe that for many large corporations that pollute, the current system of fines and penalties associated with that polluting is just the cost of doing business. What concrete plans does each leader have to address big business polluting?
Thank you, Britt. And the first answer goes to
That
Mr.
is
Blanchet.
very interesting. What is considered as the most progressive system to fight climate change so far is this agreement between California and Quebec, this trade exchange system that forces businesses to lower their emission through time. And it works very well. And I had the privilege of completing the negotiation of such a system and signing it. And it should be used elsewhere. Simple taxes that return into the pockets of people without any change in incentive are not the solution. Doing nothing, hoping that some spirit will come and solve the problem is no solution either.
That's it, Mr. Blanchet. Mr. Trudeau, over to you.
As Mr. Blanchet said, Quebec and other provinces like BC have moved forward with putting a price on pollution. We've ensured that that price is put in right across the country because it is a mechanism that will both lower emissions and ensure that Canadians can afford this transition. The choice tonight is very clear between two parties that have very different views on climate change. Mr. Scheer wants to rip up the only serious plan on climate change Canada has ever had the day after the election, and we will continue to do more. We recognize we need to do more to fight climate change. That's why we're going to be surpassing our targets. That's why we're going to get to net zero by 2050.
Mr. Bernier.
At the People's Party, we are the only real environmentalist party. Why? First of all, we want to do things that are possible. We want to do things that are possible to protect our health, our air, our environment, our water. All the other leaders claim to save the world and to save the climate. They cannot. Canada represents only 1.6% of the green gas emission. And they claim also to be able to achieve the Paris Accord target. They cannot. They have to impose a carbon tax of $300 a ton to do that, and they won't do it. They don't do it. They're hypocrites. We won't have a tax on carbon.
Time's up. Time's up. Mr. Singh.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Britt, for your question. We are faced with a climate crisis. There's no question about it. We've got massive forest fires, which make it hard to breathe in some parts of Canada, in the West. We've got Massive flooding, which means people are losing their homes in the east. This is a serious crisis. Now, while Mr. Trudeau has said a lot of nice things, let's look at what he's done. He said that he's for the environment, but then he continues to exempt the biggest polluters from his price on pollution. He says he wants to fight the climate crisis. And what does he do? He continues to subsidize oil and gas massively. He says he's a climate leader. What does he do? He buys a pipeline. There's a big gap between what Mr. Trudeau says and what he does.
And Mr. Scheer, over to you next, sir.
I find myself agreeing with you again, Mr. Singh. On the environment, like so many issues, Justin Trudeau says one thing and then does something completely different. He's talking about hitting 2050 targets. He can't even meet 2030 targets. He talks about ripping up a real plan. His plan has been proven to fail. He has given a massive exemption to the country's largest polluters. They were able to negotiate themselves up to a 90% exemption from his carbon tax. Meanwhile, hard-working commuters, moms and dads taking their kids to school or driving to work, they have to pay the full brunt of that. Our plan is a real plan that takes the climate change fight global, recognizing that we could shut everything down here
That's it, Mr. Scheer.
tomorrow.
I'm dropping the hammer. Coming to the end of the show. Ms. May.
Britt, thank you for the question. You, unlike everyone else on this stage, clearly understand that we're up against a real climate emergency. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has given us hard timelines, challenging targets. If we're going to do what's required, it isn't easy. We don't grade on a curve and say because a plan is less ambitious, it's therefore more doable. If it fails to meet the goal of holding global average temperature to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, we fail to give our kids a livable world. Greta Thunberg is right. The house is on fire. Grown-ups then stand up and say, kids, get to safety. We've got this. We'll take care of this for you.
My turn now to ask a question, and this one goes to Mr. Trudeau. And the question is this, Mr. Trudeau. Last fall, the United Nations International Panel on Climate Change stressed the need to act quickly to limit further global warming. A report from Environment Canada says this country is warming twice as fast as the global average. You say you are committed to combating climate change, but your government still proceeded with the purchase and approval of a new pipeline to the West Coast. Given the timeline and given what is at stake, should Canada not be moving more quickly away from further development of the oil and gas sector? And to that end, should the Trans Mountain expansion be Canada's last pipeline?
We absolutely have to move faster. We absolutely have to do more. And that's why we put forward an ambitious plan to continue that is reasonable, that is doable, and is going to make sure that we get to not just surpass our 2030 targets, but go beyond it. We're banning single-use plastics. We're putting a price on pollution right across the country. And we are fighting those conservative premiers who do not want to do their part to fight climate change. We recognize that transition to clean energy will not happen overnight. While we do, we should have less oil by rail, and we need to get to new markets so we can invest all the resources, all the money coming in from this pipeline into that green energy transition, into fighting climate change. I know that's a big piece of the way we move forward, how we invest in the new economy, in that transition. That's what we've done. The choice tonight is, do we pick a government that doesn't believe in climate change or in fighting it, or do we continue on the track we are and be even more ambitious?
Got to end it. I noticed you didn't answer the last part of that question, whether we were on our last pipeline. Mr. Bernier, your turn to debate Mr. Trudeau for 1 minute.
Mr. Trudeau, I think we agree that we don't agree on climate change. I believe that there's no climate emergency. You believe the opposite. But you won't be able to achieve the Paris Accord target. I'm not saying that. That's the UN who said that. You need to impose a carbon tax of $300 a ton, and you don't do that.
In 4 years, Mr. Bernier,
let me finish. Elizabeth, she's right.
Mr. Trudeau, let Mr. Bernier finish.
Elizabeth, she's right, and you're right. She has a radical plan to fight climate change. It will destroy the economy. But what about you?
Okay.
You won't be able to...
Mr. Bernier, Mr.
We
Trudeau's
made it three-quarters of the way to reaching those 2030 targets. And over the next 11 years, including by planting 2 billion trees, we're going to get there. But Mr. Bernier, what you don't understand, what Mr. Scheer doesn't understand, is you cannot build a plan for the future of our economy if you are not building a plan that protects the environment and fights climate change. That's where both of you are completely wrong.
Okay. Mr. Scheer, it's not your turn. Mr. Singh, your time to debate Mr. Trudeau.
Mr. Trudeau, I know that you say a lot of nice things, and you've been saying a lot of great things on this stage today. But the problem is that you said a lot of these things in 2015, and you made it sound like you're going to make climate a big priority. But the reality is you did all these things. You bought a pipeline, you continue to subsidize oil and gas, and you continue to exempt the biggest polluters. So what's it going to take now for Canadians to believe that you're actually going to follow through on your promises? What's it going to take for you to follow through on these commitments? Because your words are not good enough anymore.
Singh, we have reached 3/4 of the way to achieving our 2030 targets, and we're going to surpass them. And Mr. Singh, Canadians might be surprised to discover that your plan is to build a massive refinery in Alberta. And the only way to do that is with federal subsidies, because there's no private business case for it. Your plan to build a refinery in Alberta is worse for the environment than building a pipeline to the west.
Mr. Singh, Mr. Singh?
Not our plan. I don't know where you got that from. It's not our plan. We would immediately end fossil fuel subsidies. We'd immediately invest in clean energy.
That's it.
We would immediately do
That's time. Mr. Scheer, it's your turn to debate Mr. Trudeau. Same question.
When Justin Trudeau took office, there were 3 major pipeline projects ready to go. Under his watch, all of them have failed. He had to take $4.5 billion of Canadian tax money to put the Trans Mountain Pipeline on life support. And he did that by sending $4.5 billion of taxpayers' money to another country, to the United States, to be invested in the oil and gas sector there instead of here in Canada. His answer for his rationale for having 2 campaign planes was that he bought carbon offsets, which is just a thing that privileged people can do to keep polluting.
Mr. Trudeau's chance to respond. Mr. Scheer, Mr. Trudeau's chance to respond.
Mr. Scheer, you did not buy carbon offsets for your transport because you don't believe that climate change is real. You need to actually act in a way that is responsible, Mr. Scheer. And your plan is to rip up the only serious plan to fight climate change that Canada has ever had.
All right.
Canadians know how important this is.
Time's up for you as well, Mr. Trudeau. Ms. May, over to you.
To avoid catastrophic levels of global warming, we must double our current target. We must listen to science. We must not build the Trans Mountain Pipeline. It's not the last, because it gets canceled if we're serious. You can't negotiate with physics. You can't as Prime Minister, you can't as leader of the Liberal Party. There's a carbon budget. It doesn't budge. And that's why it's so heartbreaking for me to look at you today and know you could have done so much more the last 4 years. Please, God, you don't get a majority this time around because you don't keep your promises.
From the Rockies to the Bay of Fundy, Conservative premiers have gotten elected on promises to do nothing on climate change, and we need a strong federal government to fight them, to make sure that we are moving forward on protecting the future generations from the impacts of climate change.
But your goal is a target for failure. When you hang on to Harper's target of 30% by 2030, you are
going to pass that target, Ms.
Well,
May.
you better get to double that target, or you never get to carbon neutrality by 2050.
Time is up, Ms. May. Time is up, Ms. May. Mr. Blanchet, you can talk to Mr.
Trudeau, you claim to have done a lot, but Canada is the worst emitter of GHG in the G20 per capita. So that's not much of a success. But I have 2 questions from Quebec. First, will you agree with the demand of the Prime Minister of Quebec, Mr. Legault, that Quebec overview on environmental issues will have precedence over Canada's overview? Second question, do you promise after this judgment in British Columbia to not ever try to have a pipeline cross Quebec, ever?
After 10 years of Mr. Harper's failures to get things built because he did not understand, you have to work with Indigenous peoples, you have to work with local communities, you have to respect environmental science. We brought in a process that does exactly that. And we work with the provinces on ensuring that there's not a duplication of environmental oversight. That's what Bill C-69 is all about. We know that the way we move forward is responsible and will be done in partnership.
And that's the time. Mr. Trudeau, it's now your chance to ask a question of any other leader. You have 1 minute to do so, sir.
We cut taxes for small businesses to 9%. We cut taxes for Canadians. We know that tax breaks for wealthy do not work to grow the economy. 10 years of Mr. Harper's failure has done that. And yet Mr. Scheer's platform, what we've seen of it, because most of it is still secret and will remain secret, apparently, like Doug Ford, that didn't work out so well for Ontarians, is to reduce taxes for the wealthiest Canadians, the multimillionaires, by $50,000, which is more money than most Canadians make in a year.
Wrap it up.
Why the $50,000
Mr. Scheer, you have 1 minute to
wealthiest?
respond, Mr. Scheer.
First of all, Mr. Trudeau, you seem to be oddly obsessed with provincial politics. There is a vacancy for the Ontario Liberal leadership, and if you are so focused on provincial politics, go and run for the leadership of that party, Mr. Trudeau. Secondly, your tax policy has meant that 80% of Canadian families pay higher taxes today than when you first took office. That is exactly true. That was a conservative principle that Liberals fought against, that you fought against. Your signature achievement was taking a conservative idea to send support directly to parents. I voted against your tax hikes on Canadians, Mr. Trudeau. That's what I was voting against. No, I did not.
Gentlemen, one at a time. One at a time.
We are committed to protecting that benefit because it is based on a conservative principle. But we are going to
Mr. Trudeau, this is supposed to be Mr. Scheer's answer. We're going to move into open debate.
For all Canadians with a universal tax cut. We're going to bring back the children's sports and fitness tax cut.
That's it, Mr. Scheer. We've got 3 minutes on this open debate.
Starting with me.
Yes, that's right, sir.
Okay.
Off you go.
Mr. Scheer, you did not
Trudeau.
answer the question on why you were lowering taxes by $50,000 for multimillionaires in this country. Maybe you'll answer it tomorrow in the press conference, but you haven't answered it tonight.
That is just not true. You haven't answered a question your entire time as Prime Minister. I've sat across you. You never answer a question, Mr. Speaker.
More questions in the House of Commons.
I am rolling
Mr. Trudeau, let Mr. Scheer finish, please. Mr. Trudeau.
I am rolling back your tax hikes on entrepreneurs, on small business. You called them tax cheats. These are the people in our community.
For the wealthiest,
they are saving up money to open up a second location, investing in people's training and education.
No one can understand anything Mr. Blanchet wants in. Mr. Scheer, Mr. Blanchet.
You're both experts in multimillionaire. However, I have a suggestion for you. How about this idea, which has been asked unanimously by Assemblée nationale du Québec, of a single tax refund? That would save about $400 million to our combined states. Is that not a great way to save money, make things simpler for people, companies, businesses, and even government?
So you're talking about the single income tax return for Quebecers?
Yes.
I am the only federal party leader that can deliver on that, Monsieur Blanchet. That is something that I'm committed to. You might find yourself in a position
where you need me to do that.
I am committed to simplifying the lives of Quebecers by ensuring that they only have to fill out one single income tax.
I want to clarify something with Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Singh, yes, go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Scheer, you talk a lot about tax cuts, but this is the reality. The thing is that Canadians can look across this country and see what the impacts of a conservative tax cut means. Translation, cuts to education, cuts to healthcare, vicious cuts to the most vulnerable people in society. That's what you do. The thing is, Mr. Trudeau, you sound a lot different. You sound a lot better, but you've done much of the same. You've given billions of dollars to the wealthiest, and your top financiers, top cabinet ministers use tax havens.
Mr. Scheer, you can respond, then Mr. Bernier.
So under Trudeau's policy, Canadians are working harder and harder, but they're barely getting by or falling behind. Our policy will leave more money in their pockets, and we're going to do that, Mr. Singh, by protecting services like healthcare and education. We're going to get the money to pay for it by cutting corporate welfare and reducing Canada's foreign aid budget by 25%. That is going to pay for our tax cuts for all Canadians to leave more money in their pockets so that they can get ahead.
Mr. Bernier.
Not going to work.
Mr. Scheer and Mr. Trudeau, it's all the same. It's all boutique tax credit. They won't cut tax for every Canadian. We have a platform with only 2 tax rates that would be fair for everybody. So everybody will save. The cost of our tax reform would be $35 billion. But we will do that only after balancing the budget. We'll use our surplus. It's the only responsible way to give more money.
I got a question.
No, you had your chance. Ms. May wants in. Ms. May.
With 2 weeks left in this election campaign, Canadians can know one thing. At this point, Mr. Scheer, with all due respect, you're not going to be Prime Minister. The question is going to be on a seat count if we have Mr. Trudeau in a minority or Mr. Trudeau in a majority. Voting for Green MPs is your very best guarantee, Canada, that you don't get the government you least want.
Mr. Scheer can respond to that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, I'm going to prove you wrong on that, Ms. May. You just watch on October 21st.
I'll lay you bets right now.
Mr. Bernier said something that is completely untrue. Under Justin Trudeau, we will see endless deficits, meaning more and more of Canadian tax dollars goes to pay the interest on the debt. We will balance the budget while still preserving core services.
And it's Maxime Bernier's chance to lead this part of the debate. You can ask one question to any other leader. 30 seconds, please.
Yes. Andrew, you are calling yourself a conservative, but you don't want to balance the budget in 2 years. You will add $70 billion on our debt. You support the cartel in milk, dairy, and poultry, knowing that a Canadian family is paying more than $400 a year for that. Andrew, are you a real conservative? No, I think you are liberals. Why are you pretending to be something that you are not?
If you want to talk
Mr.
about
Scheer.
pretending to be something that you're not, I'm not sure which Maxime Bernier I'm debating tonight. Was it the Maxime Bernier from the 1990s who was a separatist? Was it the Maxime Bernier who was minister responsible for handing out corporate welfare? Was it the Maxime Bernier who defended supply management when it suited him? The fact of the matter is, sorry, it's my time to respond to that question. The fact of the matter is there's a clear contrast in this election. Justin Trudeau's endless deficits and tax hikes to pay for it, or a conservative plan that will leave more money in your pocket. We will lower taxes for all Canadians. We will bring back popular tax credits like the kids, sports and fitness tax credit. We will boost the RESP. We will raise the age credit for seniors, and we will bring in a green home renovation tax credit. That all the while cutting corporate welfare and Canada's foreign aid budget to bring that money back home so that Canadians can get ahead.
9 seconds. Well, let's do open debate. Off you go. You're starting that too.
Thank you very much. I'm the Maxime Bernier who's there for Canadians, and I'm the Maxime Bernier who does not care about having real debates on real issues that are important for Canadians. You don't want to have debates on immigration. You don't want to have debates to help every Canadian and abolishing that cartel in supply management. You don't want to be able to cut foreign aid. You don't want to cut foreign aid.
Let's let Mr. Scheer respond, please.
It would be important to balance the budget, and we can do that.
Scheer.
That's precisely not the case. I've said that we will cut Canada's foreign aid budget by 25% to pay for the tax cuts that we are going to bring in.
You can save $5 billion there and balancing the budget.
I want to just put in what this election is all about. This election is all about who's going to fight for you, who's going to stand up for you. And we've seen with Mr. Trudeau, he says nice words, but he gave $6 billion in corporate loan write-offs last year, $14 billion to the richest corporations. He keeps tax havens open, he keeps loopholes open. He hasn't closed them in 4 years. We're in it for people. We're not in it for the rich. We're going to deliver universal pharmacare for all. We're going to deliver dental care programs. We're going to invest in housing. And we're going to fight the climate crisis like we mean to win it. That's what you get with New Democrats. I ask people to support New Democrats.
Mr. Trudeau can respond.
To account this government, to form government in the next election.
We have invested in Canadians. We made a very different choice than Stephen Harper did, very different choice than Andrew Scheer is proposing. We lifted 900,000 people out of poverty. We lifted seniors out of poverty. We're putting more money in the pockets of students, and we're seeing over 1 million jobs created, most of them full-time over the past year. But there is over the past 4 years, but there is so much more to do. And that is what we have to stay focused on, because the fight against climate change, the fight for the future of our economy matters, and that's the choice Canadians need to make.
Monsieur Blanchet, yes,
we have completely mischaracterized our response to the climate emergency as something that somehow doesn't help the economy. You have the biggest global economic opportunity in the history of humankind in moving off fossil fuels as quickly as possible. But then you're keeping fossil fuels going because your target is exactly half of what's required. If this election is anything, it's about trust and ethics, and we are in a climate emergency. We need grown-ups in the room to take responsibility.
Mr. Blanchet.
Mr. Singh said that he wants to fight for Canadians, and that's a good point. Who do we want to fight for? I want to fight for Quebecers, and Quebecers only. If we agree with the Canadian government, then let it be. If we don't agree, we're going to fight. And this is what Bloc Québécois has always done. And I can't wait pour avoir ces gens-là dire en français ce qu'ils ont dit en anglais aujourd'hui, jeudi.
Ils vont le faire. Monsieur Scheer.
The fact of the matter is, under Justin Trudeau, life will continue to get more expensive. He will continue to raise taxes. His carbon tax will go up. He's afraid to tell you how much it will go up by. Under the Conservative plan, we'll balance the budget, protect core services, and lower taxes for all
Mr. Trudeau, 5 seconds to respond.
Our price on pollution helps Canadians more than removing it does.
Okay.
Climate emergency.
That's it. Thank you. That brings us to the end of this segment and to the end of this debate. We want to thank all of you, of course, for taking the time, our questioners tonight, and all of you for watching live in person and on your various screens. Just a reminder, as Monsieur Blanchet hinted at, that French language debate is later on this week, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. On behalf of all my wonderful moderators and everyone here, have a good night.
ਕੁਝ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਸਟੇਜ ਤੇ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸਨ, ਇਕੱਠੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਹੋਈ। ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ। ਕੁੱਲ 5 ਮੁੱਦੇ ਰੱਖੇ ਗਏ ਸਨ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਮੁੱਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਜੋ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਕਰਵਾ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੇ, ਸਗੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਭਰ ਤੋਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਲਏ ਗਏ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਲੀਡਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛੇ, ਚਾਹੇ ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹੋਵੇ, ਚਾਹੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹੋਵੇ, ਇਨਵਾਇਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹੋਵੇ। ਇਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੂਬਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ, ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਤੀ ਵੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਲਏ ਗਏ। ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਸਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਹੈ, ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ 'ਚ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦਾ ਸਥਾਨ ਤੇ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ, ਕਿਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਬਣਨਗੇ, ਕਿਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ ਜੇਕਰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਣਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਲਿਬਰਲਸ, ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵਸ, ਬਲੌਕ ਕਿਊਬੈਕ, NDP, ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ, ਪੀਪਲਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ, ਇਹਨਾਂ 6 ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਸਟੇਜ ਤੇ ਮੌਜੂਦ ਸਨ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹ ਆਖਰੀ ਵਾਰ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਖਰੀ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੱਡੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ। ਖਾਸ ਕਰ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਖੋ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਥਾਂ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਕਈ ਥਾਈਂ ਇਸ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸਕਰੀਨਸ ਵੀ ਲਗਾਈਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ। ਸਕਰੀਨਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਇਹ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਗਈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਲੀਡਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪੁੱਛੇ ਗਏ। ਤੇ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸਕਰੀਨਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਦਿਖਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਚੁਣ ਕੇ, ਜੋ ਪਰਚੀਆਂ ਪਾਈਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਚੁਣ ਕੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨੂੰ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਵੀ ਗਿਆ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਖੁਦ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਲੀਡਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਵਾਲ ਕੀਤੇ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦਾ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਥਾਨ, ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਜਿਸ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇਣ ਦੀ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ। ਤੇ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਇਸੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਭਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਪਾਰਕ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਧੀਆ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ, ਤੇ ਚੀਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ, ਜੋ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਤੇ ਚੀਨ ਦੇ ਦਰਮਿਆਨ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਹੋ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਚੁਣੌਤੀ ਭਰਿਆ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਇਹ ਸਮਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਮਯਾਬ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇਨਵੈਸਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਟੂਲਸ 'ਤੇ ਇਨਵੈਸਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਨ। ਤਾਂ ਇਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਦੂਜੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਚੀਨ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਜੋ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਲਏ ਗਏ, ਵਪਾਰਕ ਸੰਬੰਧਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਸੰਧੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਘੇਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ। ਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਉਹ ਬਲੌਕ ਕਿਊਬੈਕ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਜੋ ਲੀਡਰ ਨੇ, ਪਾਰਟੀ ਲੀਡਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਜੋ ਚੀਨ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਨੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ, ਕਿੰਨੇ ਵਰਗ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਖੇਤੀਬਾੜੀ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਲੋਕ ਇਸ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਜੋ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ, ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਹੀ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਵੀ ਹੋਇਆ। ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਸਵਾਲ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ। ਤੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਵਾਲ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਇਆ ਤਾਂ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀਅਰ ਦਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਟੈਂਡ ਇੱਕੋ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਘੱਟ ਆਉਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਪਾਇਆ ਕਿ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਡਾਈਵਰਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਣ ਵੀ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਘੱਟ ਆਉਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਤੁਲਨਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਯੂਰਪ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਆਉਣ ਕਰਕੇ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ। ਤੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਇਹ ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀਅਰ ਤੋਂ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਟਵਿੱਟਰ ਦੇ ਜ਼ਰੀਏ ਕਈ ਅਜਿਹੇ ਬਿਆਨ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਸਨ, ਕਈ ਅਜਿਹੇ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤੇ ਸਨ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਵਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਘੇਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਖਾਸ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਲਾਈਮੇਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਲੜ ਰਹੀ ਗ੍ਰੇਟਾ ਥਨਬਰਗ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਿਆਨ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਸੰਤੁਲਨ ਖੋ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੋ ਸਵਾਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਘੱਟ ਆਉਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਸੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੋਂ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਜਗਮੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਲੀਡਰਸ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਪੁਲ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਨ ਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਲੀਡਰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਨ ਦੀ, ਇੱਕ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਚੱਲਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਬਾਕੀ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਲੀਡਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਸੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਦਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਲਿਆ ਗਿਆ, ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀਅਰ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੋਲਿਆ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਬੋਲਣ ਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ। ਤੇ ਐਂਡਰਿਊ ਸ਼ੀਅਰ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਸੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੋਲੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੂੰ ਮਜ਼ਬੂਤੀ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਨਾ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਉਸੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਗ੍ਰੀਨ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰ ਐਲਿਜ਼ਾਬੈਥ ਮੇ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਚੰਗੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਚੰਗੀਆਂ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਵੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਦੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਈ ਤਾਂ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀਅਰ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਸਿੱਧੇ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਘੱਟ ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਣੇ ਬੰਦ ਹੋਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਮੈਕਸਿਮ ਬਰਨੀਅਰ ਸਿੱਧੇ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਐਂਡਰੂ ਸ਼ੀਅਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ, ਪਰ ਐਂਡਰੂ ਸ਼ੀਅਰ ਦੀ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਸੋਚ ਉਹੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਐਂਡਰੂ ਸ਼ੀਅਰ 'ਤੇ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨਾ ਸਾਧਿਆ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੋਰ ਕੀ ਕੁਝ ਰਿਹਾ ਖਾਸ, ਤੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਲਾਈਵ ਅਪਡੇਟਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ TV ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਂਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ TV ਪੰਜਾਬ।